Our next presentation is going to be given to us today by a partner from Deloitte, from technology sector lead, and his name is Milan Sallaba. So, Mr. Salamba, the stage is yours.
Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you. Good afternoon. You can hear me all right? So my name is Milan. I work for Deloitte, one of the preeminent professional services organizations. And I like to do 4 things in the time that we have today. Reset the scene. Not everybody is on the same page when it comes to cognitive. I like to share some of our research. I like to share some of the challenges that organizations that try to implement AI are facing. And lastly, I like to leave you with some takeaways how to start cognitive or artificial intelligence implementations in your own organizations. So let's go. So we've been looking at artificial intelligence for a number of years across all sectors, across different aspects, from collaborative to the technical aspects to future work, what are the implications, and across a number of industries as well. First, what is it that it says in all of those papers? Number 1 is there's a continuum when it comes to cognitive, from process robotics to real artificial intelligence. And in the public view, there's no clear demarcation between an application that is intelligent and one that isn't. And it's confusing if you read newspaper articles or if you try to make up your own mind, if you try to look at use cases. Is this pure automation or is this independent thinking machine? And don't worry about it, because it's a continuum and very few people really have a very clear idea whether one is one or one is the other. And that's why some of the previous speakers show this as a continuum. 2, a lot of AI is science fiction, particularly if you think about the true independent thinking machine. It's a long way off, and it's not really what we should worry about. That doesn't mean, number 3, that there's no value in artificial intelligence today in applications. Cognitive can increase speed and efficiency. It produces fewer errors, and can provide a lot of value. The people and the organizations that deal with artificial intelligence see huge business potential in it. Mostly are very, very positive, particularly the more they do, the more they experiment with it. Because it's a process, and you need to figure out what works, what doesn't. So you need to stick with it. And finally, you need to understand what the intelligence, the artificial intelligence, and the algorithms are doing. If it's a black box, it won't work for you. In particular, you can't draw out conclusions, and you don't know what decisions to make on the basis of what the artificial intelligence is telling you, because you don't know how it arrived at a set recommendation. Now, TMT organizations, telecom, media, and technology organizations are at the forefront of this trend. They invest more money in it than other industries. Here, a quarter of TMT industry companies that we surveyed, out of 250 companies in total, say that they invested more than $10 million in it. That's more than most startups can easily put to play. And the question is why? Well, the answer is here. Look around you. It's all of the big companies that invest not only 10 millions, but sometimes hundreds of millions. And they will have many hundred people working on artificial intelligence projects if you're an organization such as Alphabet or Google. And what is it that they see? What is it that they use it for? They use it as a platform to sell to others. They use it for their own products, such as Google Duplex. And they use it sometimes as open source to make available to others so that they can use and co-develop. And this is, for example, used in gaming platforms. Now, 40% of the TMT organizations that use artificial intelligence see substantial benefit, more than others. The question is why? Why is there a differential between the benefit that is seen in one industry than in others? And the answer is because they do more of it. Here on this page, you see the number of deployments. There's some correlation between the benefits that's observed. And that is a key point. It's trial and error. It's let me see what works, and if it doesn't work, let me try again. And the number of deployments is, you treat it as a portfolio. It's not one shot. You need to disseminate knowledge around artificial intelligence and cognitive. It's not my two experts. It's in all of your processes. You need to try to find out a series of applications or a series of processes that you can improve on. And don't set yourself deadlines. You know, it has to produce a certain business case for day X or Y, otherwise we'll scrap the whole thing. Artificial intelligence and cognitive and getting economic benefit is really quite hard. But it can be done, and it can be done if you stick to it. Now, the areas in which companies put cognitive to work are threefold. It's a little bit of a summary of what we've seen before. But firstly, you transform how work gets done. That's process automation. Things that are tedious, things that are hard, prone, error prone, you can automate quite easily. Some of it is intelligent, some of it is not, some of it is just automation. The second is transforming how decisions are made. This is your big data use case. You know, mining data lakes, different data sources, coming up with recommendations, often in real time. Some of the previous speakers had a number of use cases that play in here. And you basically get a step change in terms of insights and speed for your decision making, so that you can focus not on the research, but on actually interpreting the data. And finally, transforming interactions. This is where the chatbots come in. Right? So your first contact point will not be the human anymore, but maybe a robot that acts like a human, and you can hardly distinguish who you're talking to. Is it a robot or is it a human? These are three areas. Some take more knowledge. So from the left, transforming how work gets done. Everybody can start, and you can start tomorrow. To transforming interactions, that is quite harder, because you need more elements that are cognitive, and you need more elements that are high-tech. And it'll cost a little bit more as well. This slide is a little bit busy. The takeaway here is, if you were to go back and you think about how do I go about it, in my organization, there's three things you should think about. It needs to be viable, valuable, and vital. That's how you can sort of corral the interest of the organization all the way up to the CFO around it. Viable, it needs to obviously be able to generate a scale that is worth your while. Second, valuable, can I make better use of some resource which are used in the process and free that resource to do something else? Such as, in a finance environment, can I use that resource to help me with the analysis of the data instead of writing a report, or help me with the strategy of my business instead of looking and adding up columns and numbers. And finally, vital, it's a little bit the idea of an industry standard. So if you look at Amazon and the recommendation engine, if you're not as good as Amazon, if you don't have a recommendation engine, you're losing out on business, because it's becoming the industry standard for online shopping. So therefore, it's not a nice to have, it's a must have. Now, what are some of the implementation challenges? Threefold. Integration is typically very difficult. So you go back and say, it's really hard to integrate artificial in whatever form, whether it's step 0 or step 5, into my existing processes. It costs a lot. And finally, my people don't have the expertise and know-how. This is basically the feedback that comes back, and it can be a little bit sobering, because it means that there's quite a few challenges. However, when we then ask people, what is it that you do to overcome those challenges? It's the following. It's about training, it's about exposure, it's about collaboration on the job. And if you think about what I said previously in terms of our portfolio, not having two experts, but trying to have a culture that fosters cognitive and artificial, and you're not afraid in terms of, ooh, you know, if I automate something, I may lose my job. No, you may automate something, and then you may do something else, which is more fun and interesting. And if you foster that kind of environment, you get into, you know, a positive cycle. But invest in training, invest in collaboration around these topics is key. And don't close yourself up to those, because there's very few experts around. So therefore, if you say, okay, let me get started, I don't know much, that doesn't matter, because the next guy doesn't know much. Maybe you hire someone that's done it before, and you can create a little bit of a nucleus. And then summarizing all of this, and this will be my last slide, sort of trying to put everything together. First, you need a hands-on approach. You need to try, because it's very important that you understand what the algorithm says. How does it work? What data does it need to be successfully applied for the process that I'm trying to automate, or for the insights that I'm trying to generate? You need to work with a portfolio of things, a portfolio of use cases. Because in some of the previous slides, I didn't point that out, but if you only have 1 or 2 applications, it might not work. And you say, you know, this artificial intelligence approach doesn't work for our organization, and you leave it. It's the same as investing in startups, right? You invest in a portfolio. Some will be hugely successful, others won't, and you don't really know up front. So invest in a little bit of a portfolio. And the way to do this is, yes, you can have a little bit of a unit with a skilled team, particularly if you're a large organization, and they can work with certain functions. And then sort of you can redeploy. But the key is to have a hands-on approach and collaborative approach. And the third point is to develop and implement some of your own solutions. And what I mean by that is, you might say, well, we're not software engineers and all that. All of those tech companies, they will sell you solutions, and they will sell you, you know, AI as a service. And that's fine, and there's a place for it. But you, as an organization, you need to understand what you are actually buying and how you're using that power. And therefore, you need to get involved. And your processes may be similar or different from the next company's processes. And if you don't understand what you're using the algorithm for, or what they say, you're not really getting the best out of it, because it comes back to the black box phenomenon, where the cognitive process suggests something, and you implement it without really understanding what it says. And this human element of intuition is always one that will rest on you, and it's your responsibility to take the data and to make the best recommendation that you can on that basis. Focus on change and innovation. There's a tendency today to say we focus not so much on innovation, we focus on cost. Let's automate all of our boring processes, and let's get rid of 50% of our people. And this may happen in some industries and for certain processes. In the Handelsblatt yesterday, if I remember correctly, there was a headline that said some of the banks fear that they will lose 50% of IT jobs to technology. Yeah, that's fine, but you can augment your business, and you can use those resources to do other things. And if you only focus on cost saving, you will not think about the new products and services and solutions that are so much richer. So therefore, you should not only focus on the cost saving when you start with AI, but focus on what can we do better and different. And finally, redeploy those freed up resources, which is obviously goes without saying. You shouldn't kick out the people that work with you on automating the boring stuff. You should reuse them and basically make your organization more productive and effective. Thank you very much.